hello, everyone. Welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. And I'm your host, Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And for those new listeners out there, I want to share with you what this podcast is all about. It is all about your individuals who are ready to move forward in their lives, to do something different. Um, but yet they have these self-imposed barriers that's preventing them from living their best life on those terms. Like sabotage, self-imposed barriers, negative self-talk, all that kind of stuff, right? And so we talk about topics related to personal and business development, and also topics that will enable you to reflect over your life and perhaps the change that you've been wanting to make. This could be the podcast where you would make that change. Our topic today is how to build a 5-year plan and live your best life. That's the title. And who better to talk about that? My special guest, Alika Samone. Welcome.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to be here because of this topic. That's kind of what I talk about, living your best life. So we're definitely on one accord. So my listeners, what I'd like to do first for those new ones, I usually delve into their background a little bit, just so you have an opportunity to understand and know what they were doing prior to their current life right now. Okay? Leica is a dynamic entrepreneur blending science and creativity. With a background in spacecraft design and program management, she retired to pursue her passion for art and nature. She developed the Summit Method, which is a holistic life planning approach. Drawing from her wisdom and connection to nature, she inspires others to pursue their passions through her life experiences. She's an author, and the name of her book is Conquer Your Summit: How to Build a 5-Year Plan and Live Your Best Life. So, in other words, she helps people become the best versions of themselves. Yay, that sounds great. Um, I want you to, I love her name. It's not like you spell it. So I like it. Share with the audience what your name is, your first name.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my first name, and don't want it's Alakai.
Mhm.
So it's a Hawaiian pronunciation, but I'm actually named after an author. So it's this funny story where maybe I was destined to learn all of this in my life, come up with a method, help others, and then also become an author. Um, but Aliki Samone is my author and stage name. I am both a musician, an artist, and yes, someone here coming today to talk about my book. But that I think it's filled me with a unique life, and so I need to continue to fill those shoes as I go forward.
Well, great, Alakai. Yeah, they say there's meaning to everybody's name. So she definitely knows the meaning of her name and she's living it, right? So, what I'd like to do now is I want you to tell your backstory. And this is before you retired from the spacecraft design and program management. What tell us about your backstory first?
Absolutely. I'm going to go real back with
Okay.
my backstory
Yeah.
because I think it's actually really important to me, and it's not only important to me as a person, but I think it's usually important to those who want to listen and feel they have had a similar experience. So I grew up, and I actually have a right brain, left brain, both complement and conflict. And what that means is I'm both very creative and colorful. That's where the
Hmm.
music and the art and all of that passion fuels.
Hmm.
But I also loved science, loved math. I really grew up with that analytic side of the brain. And so as I continued into high school and still diving through both, eventually, like a lot of us, you get to this point where you have to make a decision. Now,
Hmm.
here in the United States, you have to make a decision apparently at 18 what you want to do with the rest of your life.
Okay.
When you choose to either I don't know, go to college or jump into a job or maybe go to trade school or
Yeah.
whatever, you decide to go into,
Right.
I had to make that choice. Was I going to go with my passion, go with music, go with the art that I wanted to do, maybe
Mm-hmm.
musical theater. I
Mm-hmm.
was very, into that, or go into aerospace engineering, which was something that I also developed a strong passion around when I was in high school. And in the end, that can be hard, right? I
Yeah.
think so many, to me, that was the precursor of what so many of us feel, that
Mm-hmm.
we have said no to our passions, that we have left our
Yeah.
passions and our joy aside to either never come back or
Mm-hmm.
to constantly be wondering when,
Yes.
when in my life am I going to actually finally live my passion or have the joy that I'm waiting for?
Okay.
And so that started early in my backstory, right?
Yeah.
Choosing to set that aside. Now, in that choice, I knew consciously that I was going to go do aerospace. I was going to go live this different life and develop in that way. And I was going to graduate, get a job, go into that industry
That's right.
because I knew it was going to help fuel my ability to
Mm-hmm.
bring those passions back.
Okay.
And when I got out of school and I started in my position, I was designing spacecraft. It was fun. You get into that, I'm an adult now. Now what?
Yeah.
How do I learn to have a job? How do I learn to what's a career? I have to make friends.
Yes.
What is my family? There's all those things. What do I want to personally grow in?
Mm-hmm.
And those passions start coming back. And a
Mm.
lot of us lose how we can actually do that.
Right. Right. How now which spacecraft that you design? Is it anything that we all should know or see where your imprint was? Would love to
That's a
know.
great question.
Mm-hmm.
I love talking about space.
Yeah.
That could be
Yeah.
a whole nother thing.
Okay.
The short answer is probably not. However, if
Uh-huh.
you have you ever seen like satellites on houses or heard of like DirecTV or Dish
Yeah.
Network and those kind of
Yes.
things, my early career, I
Uh-huh.
was a spacecraft designer for what they called geocom satellites,
Mm-hmm.
geocommunication satellites,
Yeah.
and those are huge. I mean, they can be the size of a car, a
Yeah.
small bus,
Right.
and they are up there they're the ones like transmitting all the data and making
Okay.
that whole technology work. So
Okay.
I actually did work on a few of those programs before I moved on to different types of satellites or other spacecraft in space. But that would be my answer of what
Okay.
someone might be able to put their finger on.
Yeah, that's good because I'm thinking of a spacecraft like a spacecraft, right? So I'm glad that you clarified that. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, satellites up there,
yeah,
providing all kinds of different communications and
right,
services.
right. Well, listen, what was your transition like from spacecraft design to program management to your passion? What was that transition like?
I love this question. Um, you know, I like talking a bit about my story, which is kind of what we've been piecing together because the story
Hmm.
is what fed into me building the summit method, which is the method that I
Mm,
go over in my book because
okay.
I am someone who, like many of you out there, probably do have lots of things you want to do and you don't know how to accomplish them. You don't know how to fit them all in. So that was me. I was a spacecraft designer. I wanted more. I
Yeah.
realized I loved working with people. And
Mm,
and and it's that realization that we all have to try to get out of our own way, if
yes.
and
Right.
say, I need to listen to myself here. I
Hmm.
don't want to sit behind, at my desk behind a computer doing all this detailed engineering work. I love it. It's good.
Yeah.
But I've suddenly realized, wow, when I work with all of these other people, I'm fueled more. I have this knack for
Mm,
what I then learned was program management and
yeah.
project management and bringing
Hmm.
people together. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to just make that jump.
Okay.
That that willingness to make a jump into something new, into a different career, into a different subject, still in aerospace,
Yeah.
opened up the doors, right? Opened
Hmm.
up my mind to be open-minded to something new. And led me into a startup world, actually, a
Okay.
startup aerospace
Yeah.
company, right?
Yeah.
And to answer your full question, which was, well, then what was that transition to passions?
Right.
It was using this method, which I've developed over the last 10 years as a
Okay.
way to very regularly check in with yourself and your
Mm-hmm.
mind. So every quarter, I'm going in, I'm reviewing my plans, I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing the data, I'm seeing where I want to go, where I want to grow to, how I
Okay.
need to get there. And I realized it was time to get out of my own way
Okay.
and open a few more doors. And
Uh-huh.
in order to do that, I had to shut a door, right? I had to
Right.
choose to say, you know, I am going to leave the aerospace industry, maybe forever or maybe for now, and, quote, retire, if you will. But we how many of us retire and then end up going
Right.
back?
Exactly. What is that?
Um, you know, I I had to do the math and figure out, okay, let's
Mm-hmm.
take a couple months off because
Mm-hmm.
I need this time of clarity. And that was how I got out of my own way to see my future, was to
Wow.
allow myself to take the mental space
Yes.
to read some books, to journal on my thoughts, to follow my own, method, which at the time I didn't go around calling it the summit method.
Exactly.
It was just a method I used to try and be someone who has way too many things I want to do out of life, but
Yeah.
there's conflicting priorities as to how you actually get through life.
Right. Right.
um, and I use that
Okay.
to make that final transition where I said, okay, I'm going to focus on my desire to be a business owner, have my own entrepreneurship and,
Mm-hmm.
build my own business,
Mm-hmm.
focus on my music, focus on my art. I was doing a lot of
Mm-hmm.
murals at the time. And then I realized, wait a second,
Yeah.
I should write this down.
Okay.
And I was introduced to the concepts and how to actually write a book and build this platform together, something that I've always followed and I was, actively teaching other people on. And now that was the final transition, is that realization. Had I
Right.
not gone out of my own way, had I not left aerospace, had I not
Yeah.
made that scary leap into the unknown, I would
Yes.
have never known
That's right.
that I wanted to write a book. I wanted to be on podcasts. I wanted to share my message. And more importantly, see if I could help change lives and make all of you out there, have
Right.
what you're looking for.
What a great story. You're so courageous. Wow, Alakai. That what you did was courageous. Now, when you kind of looked at your finances and everything, did you had an idea of what you did, but not concrete, excuse me, like it is now. Whereas my listeners, they have ideas, that they have passions and they want to do this, and we think that we should have everything together before we make that move. And so I'm certain you didn't have everything together. I mean, you getting it now, and it's probably a work in process. But a lot of people like, well, this is what I want to do, but I don't know how to do it, so I'm going to just stay here. 1 year goes by, 2, 5 years, 10 years, and then that's when people start regretting. They have regrets of their life because they're not doing what it is that they wanted to do. Um, what was the most scariest thing when you left? What did you fear the most?
You know, what I feared the most, hmm, was I just want to figure out how to articulate this the right way.
Okay.
I actually feared
Uh-huh.
going back, right? I think we fear, okay, I'm going to give myself a week. You give yourself
Yeah.
a deadline. Is it a week? Is it a month? Is it a year? What can you afford to
Right.
get in the scenario that I'm talking about? It's if you're choosing to leave your job and give yourself time for clarity, let's say. Well,
Mm-hmm.
what's your runway? How much time can you afford to do that before suddenly you need a job?
Right.
And that can be really scary
Yeah.
because if you let that monster, if you let that worry monster get to you, then you're not going to be able to leverage that clarity that you gave yourself, the couple months, the week, the year, whatever it was, because you're constantly thinking, if I don't figure out how to
Mhm.
be successful in the next month of my life, I'm I don't know what I'll do. I
Hmm.
got to find another job. And now you're right back into that rat race. You're right back into the fear of finding a new position or going right back to where you were. What can I do? Well, I can always go back and do
Yeah.
X. I
Right. Your
can
comfort
always,
zone.
mhm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's really hard.
Yeah.
And you have to, I talk about in my book kind of these three phases: mental tools, planning techniques, and execution habits.
Hmm.
And the reason mental tools is first on the list, it's the first, three chapters of my book, is because you have to set yourself up mentally
Yeah.
to get to where you want to go. Like, forget for a moment what might be in your way.
Yeah.
Even if you get those barriers out of your way, your
Yeah.
mind is a powerful place and
Hmm.
it will convince you all kinds of things.
That's right. That's right. That's right. No limits if
So
you
you
let.
have to make sure you focus
Hmm.
on actually taking the time to say, what is your deepest why? What
Hmm.
drives you? What is the passion? What is your life purpose statement or statements?
Hmm.
So that when times get tough or that scary, oh my gosh, I need a job in a month. What am I going to do? You remember your deepest why. Every time it gets tough, every time you look at those finances, every time you're struggling through how to actually make it through your plan, you go back to that deepest why because that's why you're doing it. That's the
Right.
passion.
That's right.
That should be able to hook you into a more
Hmm.
positive growth mindset where those failures you have, those challenges, that debt you have, that whatever it is that's bringing
Hmm.
you burden,
Hmm.
remember that is just opportunity for growth that you need to go get the education or ask for mentorship or figure out how to make a plan
Right.
to get there. And it's so easy to just get lost
Oh,
in
absolutely.
the worry.
Absolutely. How long did it take you to figure out your why? Did you know why when you left the job?
No, I
Right.
actually believe that knowing your why is something that fluctuates with time.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish more people spent time in their life sitting down and writing it out
Yeah.
and putting it on a piece of paper and looking at it on the wall,
Yeah.
every day or month. And what is my why? Your why is going to change. And my why has changed
Yeah.
so much over time.
Right.
But I use a method of mind maps. So there's a series of, 4 or 5 questions,
Yeah.
and you give yourself the mental space of 5 to 10 minutes, and you just open your notebook and let yourself think. Maybe it's, what am I grateful for that
Mm-hmm.
happened in the last year? That forces me to take a moment and say, you know what? Yeah, let's pause
Mm-hmm.
and think about the good. Think about what has been brought to me. It's so
Right.
easy for us to focus on the negatives and then this negativity
Yeah.
mindset. So do a mind map
Yeah.
on a question like that. Do a mind map on, what does my ideal life look like?
Yeah.
Then you
Mm-hmm.
start realizing, oh my gosh, this is not the case, but I want to retire and live on a private island. And you start
Right.
realizing, wow, I never knew that that was such a passion I had.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
not my personal passion, but um, you don't know this unless you give yourself the time and space to just write it out. And guess what? Nobody has to see it.
Right.
It's that you gave yourself the time to sit down and actually, think.
Right.
So I answer ideal life. What am I thankful for? What are experiences or people in
Mm.
my past that have maybe really affected me, whether it's positive or negative?
Yeah.
How is that carrying forward? And as I keep answering these questions, which I do regularly, once a year, I make sure and I do this and I look back and I say, is my life purpose changing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can have multiple statements. I think you definitely can have one
Right.
driving force, or I definitely make sure people know the world can be more flexible. You can have a couple things that are driving you. And
Yeah.
it was actually after I quit, after I left aerospace, that I honed in on my current deepest why, which is, you know, I am pushing forward and trying to break the envelope of Aliki Samone, um, to help others.
Okay.
I have come
Good.
to this realization that I am driven by a passion to lift others up, to help them succeed in whatever way I can. And there's a
Wow.
few other life purpose statements I have,
Sure.
but that's
Sure.
a main one that actually came out from leaving a position that it was hard. You get to some of
Sure.
these jobs where maybe some of you out there are in a toxic position,
Yeah.
or you're being brought down
Yeah.
by your current situation, and that was me. I
Yeah.
love my industry. I love the technology. I love what I was doing, but I was surrounded by some individuals and scenarios that I had to choose to say this isn't worth it anymore, and we need
Exactly.
to make a change.
Yes, exactly. And I love your concept mind mapping. So that to me is like that project management thing in you. Like I have an organizational development background, and you can use mind mapping to write a book. You can use mind mapping. So I love that technique that you've done, and I've not heard anybody talk about it except in the OD world, a project management world. So that's very, very cool. Now I want you to explain, how do you build this 5-year plan and live your best life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's dive in a little bit.
Yes.
So, we talked about mental tools. So,
Yeah.
check mark. We all know that we have to be mentally awesome in order to have a great 5-year plan. The reason for
Yes.
that is because now that we're going to hop over to how to actually do it, you're
Right.
going to look at your personal growth,
Mm-hmm.
your financial freedom, your career success, and your community impact. Those are the 4 pillars, if you will, of
Okay. Mm-hmm.
again, there's probably tons of ways to, come up
Sure.
with plans. We're talking about what I
Absolutely.
at least, do.
Right.
Um that makes a holistic plan. You you start with yourself, right? You've got your mind. You are the only version of you. There's
Mm-hmm.
no one else like you. So you need to make sure you're sound. Have you looked at your personal growth? What spirituality, fitness, events, travel, hobbies, whatever you name it, what about you is important in the next 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we go to the fact that the world does revolve around money.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't changed that yet. So we
Yeah.
do have to look at our finances.
Right.
And then how do we support finances? Well, we have a career.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have a community of people, friends, family, etc., that we work with
Mm-hmm.
to make it all come together. And if we don't set goals and thoughts around those people, then we can't be successful, right?
Right.
I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who can relate with, yeah, I've been wanting to have, family reunion or everyone get together here at some point.
Yeah.
At some point. Those
Exactly.
those points take planning.
That's right. And
Without uh
and
exactly, and
yeah,
action.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, the 5-year plan is the planning techniques phase of the book, and it's basically a series of mind maps.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a template format, but it's not about following a template. It's just
Okay.
about, you know, creating a time and space via the summit method. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually ask people to do a summit event, which is a day or half day, whatever you can afford in your life. But look, if you want to change your life, you need to
Yeah.
make the choice to sit down and focus and change your life.
Okay.
So you go through these activities, you go through questions, and you start driving down to, what does this ideal life look like? What are dreams and goals that you have for personal growth, financial freedom, career success, and community impact?
Alakai,
Yeah,
let me stop you for a moment. Um, so the person that wants to change their life, are they the ones that should have an event, a retreat, or and
great question.
yeah.
Everyone
Uh-huh.
has a retreat. In
Uh-huh.
fact, you are going to do this event 4 times a year. And
Mm-hmm.
that might seem a little different from the stereotypical yearly planning situation that we all
Mm-hmm.
think goes into New Year's
Mm-hmm.
resolutions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I suggest a retreat if
Mm-hmm.
possible, at least the first time. And what I mean by that is you got to get yourself out of the space you're in.
Mm-hmm.
If you can if you can swing actually like going to a different location or
Yeah.
making somewhat of a vacation out of it, pick half a day of that vacation to actually sit down and go through this template and build out that plan and be in another space, wonderful. If you can't do that, you can do it at home. Move
Mm,
some furniture around, bring in a
okay.
plant, change
Okay.
up your space because you want to tell yourself this is important.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this, and I'm in the mentality of what do I want in 5 years? And then
Right.
I'm going to break up the pieces. I'm going to make a planning sandwich where the planning
Okay.
sandwich says, okay, here's my summit event. Here I am. I'm ready. What's my
Okay.
current state? So you're going to write out, well, these are all my current goals and my current thoughts or my current situation when it comes to the 4 pillars. So
Mm-hmm.
for finances, you're going to be listing out all those accounts and wherever you are with income, expenses, debts, savings, investments, whatever it might be. Where are you getting to in your retirement? These are hard things to do because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they lead to uncovering things that make us upset
Yeah.
or challenged or not know how to get out of a situation. Guess what? That's okay. That's the hardest part. You have to write down your current state. You have to take that positive mindset and say, I am making a difference in my life because I'm choosing to try and write down the current state. Then you go whoop over here to
Yeah.
the fun part, right? And
Yeah.
the fun part is, what does life look like? What are those ideal dreams you have? What do you want to do in these 4 pillars? So
Okay.
you've got the now, you've got the future, you've got the bread of your sandwich. Well, a sandwich is only as good as, its delicious ingredients, right?
Right.
Um, so that's where you're going to break up. You're going to say, well, if my goal, I'm going to use
Mm-hmm.
a random example. Let's say I wanted to be the next, powerlifting champion of some, strength training competition.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's going to take time. It could take years to get to
Right.
that point. Well,
That's right.
what are the steps to get there?
Yeah.
So do a mind map, do a brainstorm. What are the many steps that it takes to get out of debt, to get to that personal goal,
Okay.
to plan a family reunion, whatever it is that you've got on your list. And
Right.
if you don't know, accountability partner, mentor, Google it, you name it. Go find out the many steps. And then all you have to do is pick a year 4, year 3, year 2, year 1. Which year are you going to focus on that mini goal, which is feeding towards the bigger, scarier goals that we feel like we don't even know how to accomplish?
Right. Because you have a 2-year plan, a
Yeah.
3-year plan. Yeah. So this retreat is a retreat for yourself,
Hmm.
right? So has anybody ever invited you to their retreat? Like they need
Great.
some, yeah, they need some coaching, some
Yeah.
encouragement.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm really glad you mentioned that because yes, it's about building your 5-year plan at a
Mhm.
at a higher level.
Okay.
It's getting down to this 2-year action plan, which is where you're like, okay, let's put a little bit more detail in here. Let's look at the
Okay.
months. Let's see what we're going to do in 2 years. And then saying, all right, now we're at year 1.
Mm-hmm.
Every quarter, we have to do something. We have to
Okay.
say, let's make, a big change in that direction. Because
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, if you only plan for 5 years, we go every single day being like 5 years is 5 years from now. That's what
Right.
happens to us, right? We just ignore it and we don't check in. So
Right.
if you cinch it down and get to the quarterly planning, you are more likely to be successful.
Okay.
And when you do the summit event and you go through these activities of the
Mm-hmm.
5-year, the 2-year, and the quarterly planning that goes
Mm-hmm.
around this like 1-year plan, you're doing it with a partner.
Okay.
Can you do it by yourself? 100%. It is
Okay.
designed to be able to do by yourself. For those who are scared to share any of this information with
Okay.
anyone. But I actually, my husband and I, we had a huge part in defining a lot of this together. I
Okay.
find that the summit method is something that absolutely will help change, relationships, whether it's a romantic relationship or friendships, family, maybe it's, parents. W- You, doing this with another person is
Right.
going to open up a whole new level of possibility because look at us, we're having a conversation right now.
Right. But what's going to allow them to change? Is it because it'll by happenstance that individual that they may be not having a great relationship, because I think that was one of the pillars, the mind and the
Mhm.
relationship. So by working this, and I could see how they can maintain the momentum because this is something they're working on for years. I mean, it's not like I work on it today in a workshop and that's done.
Right.
So yeah, so you have templates that will help them and guide them along. So because of what they're doing and it's becoming habitual, do they automatically change because of the work that they're doing?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Um, so, you know, I will start with, let's be honest. Like, I can't fundamentally make you change.
Mm-hmm.
Only you can make
Right.
you change, which
Mm-hmm.
means you're accountable to yourself. Now, when you have an accountability partner, which is
Right.
why I like to bring in teams,
Yes.
because you feel like this other person is depending on you to make some changes,
Right.
that's always good. But there's a third step or a third phase in the summit method, which is the execution habits.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how I want to answer your question. I believe that data, data driven work
Mm-hmm.
is what keeps us more accountable as people,
Mm-hmm.
because and sorry, accountability and
Uh-huh.
actually doing the work is what's going to help change your life and get you to a different area. Because if you just
Okay.
dream it,
Okay.
it doesn't happen, right? A a dream is a wish, you need a plan to get there,
Exactly.
right? Well, a fun, I guess, example, because analogies and metaphors are always more fun. If I get in the car and I say I am going to go to New York,
Mm-hmm.
I could get there. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I could probably drive. I'm currently in Central America, so I could get there. I could get there so many different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I just get in the car and I literally, turn it on and I just start driving.
Right.
But the reality is, most people are going to open their phone and pull up their
Mhm.
maps, put in their destination, and what is that app doing for you?
Yeah.
It's going to calculate the most efficient, optimal plan to get from point A to point B. And we
Right.
follow that plan, we follow that data. We could have just gone with our own minds and just,
Sure.
rolled around
Uh-huh.
as we went. But it shows you that there is a power. There's a power behind actually creating a plan and following it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
the same thing in your life, where if you write down what you want, you write down this 5 year, 2 year, and 1 year plan,
Mm-hmm.
and then you take the execution habit steps,
Mm-hmm.
you are absolutely more likely to get to where you're trying to go because you are
Mm-hmm.
being reminded. And the reminder feature, the habit techniques that I lay out in the later part of my book, is what brings it all together.
Okay.
I talk about, grab a piece of paper, grab a sticky note, whatever you want, and
Mm-hmm.
stick it on your nightstand. Stick
Mm-hmm.
it on the mirror in your bathroom. Have it list out what are your, the big goals you're
Right.
working on, and then
Exactly.
what are the sub goals that you're working on this quarter.
Yeah.
And when you see that every day, it's like picking up your phone and following the map to New York.
Yes.
You
Right.
can't ignore it, right?
Right.
I mean, you can ignore it, and that's on
Sure.
you.
Exactly. Exactly.
But um, yeah, so it's about following the data and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that you actually check in with your plans. And I think
Okay.
that's where a lot of people fail when they're so frustrated and they're trying to get somewhere. You
Right.
got to get back to that plan, you got to review that plan, and you have to adjust it
Yeah.
as life's turns come in the way. You're following that Google map and there's a road
Yeah.
closed. Well, the map is going to change. The plan is going to change, right?
Right.
And
So,
that's okay.
yeah, let me ask you, let's say there's an individual who's working in a job that's toxic. They're ready to move on. They're ready to get out. They're just miserable, just dread Monday mornings. Would they be able to use a summit method just to find another job?
It's a good question. The answer is, if you were someone
Mhm.
who, I think it's a great method if you're not really sure where you want to go or
Right.
what you want to go to.
Yes.
It's a method to help you unpack that in your mind and
Yes.
maybe come up with the answer. Now, if you're in a toxic job and you want to go to a certain company or go
Right.
to a certain career,
Mm-hmm.
then you already have aspects of that plan, right? That's good.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
you
you know
don't
where you want to
need
go. Mm-hmm.
you know where you want to go. Exactly.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then, you're using the summit method in a different way. Now you're saying, "Wait, I know what I want to do."
Yeah.
Perfect. Put
Yeah.
that right here. That's your summit you're going to.
Right.
Now use the summit method to say, what are the mini steps I need to do to starting today so
Right.
that I can make that shift? So I can quit in 2 weeks, so I can quit in a year. You're making that decision to make a plan to actually act. And
Okay.
I actually used one of my summit events to make that decision. That is
Mm-hmm.
where I calculated my finances and I looked at
Mm-hmm.
all of the data and
Mm-hmm.
it showed me, uh-oh, I was ready to quit. It was January, and
Right.
I was determined to get out of there. I was ready to go live a new life and figure out where I wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
But the data showed me a different story. And it was because I did my summit event, because I looked at what was before me, I
Mm-hmm.
realized the right choice was for me to continue to work there. I think it was until like March or April.
Mm-hmm.
There were various, situations that like it or not, financially or, the
Exactly.
relationships wise, I had to continue. But
Exactly.
it was that summit event and looking at the data and making the plan and seeing it that
Mm-hmm.
helped make the decision that led to I now actually have a date. I not only have a date, I have a plan to, take 2 months off. I'm going to
Right.
try to do this during those 2 months. I have a little bit of a runway. And guess what? I didn't have it all planned out, you
Right.
know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I at least had what I needed at the time.
Right.
And then a circle point where it's like, okay, when things go bad, then I could, try to jump
Right.
in this. So
Right.
hopefully that answers your question where it can be in multiple levels,
Right.
but the summit method and doing that event is just designed to get the data out of your
Right.
head, out of the computer, out of your life, and put it so you can read the map, get in the car, and more effectively get to where you're trying to go.
Right. And I wanted to ask that because these are individuals, my listeners wanting to get out of their way, and they have career challenges. They don't like their career, financial challenges, relationship. Some want to be an entrepreneur. Some, want to open up a salon. It's always something. It's the reason I started this whole concept because I was in my way of doing what it was my passion was, knowing that I wanted to write a book for years. But did I do it right away? Absolutely not. It took me a while to do that. So I was asking that so my listeners could hear, okay, what methodology can I use to help me get out of my way so that I can do this passion of mine? So that's why I asked, can you
Yeah.
use that with different scenarios? But yet they would have to get your book.
They would.
Right?
I'll give you a case example for fun, to your listeners on that one. You have to open your mind to new things. And when you see the no's stacking up, whether it's financial no's stacking up or,
Mhm.
other data, question it.
Mhm.
Go get a mentor. Go talk to other people.
Yeah.
You have to try to open your mind to new ideas. I, yes, am a singer-songwriter and a musician, but it took me many, many years to realize the only person blocking me from getting my studio album recorded was me,
Right.
you know?
Absolutely. Hmm.
And that was hard to hear from
Yeah.
myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
That I I I'm not a trained musician. I didn't go to school and learn all of the things that you look at all these musicians out there and they're amazing. But you
Yeah.
have to realize, well, I am who I am. I am the artist that I am, and I don't have to be a perfectly trained musician
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
go into the studio and lay down all of these songs that I've written. They're still real songs,
Right.
regardless of where they
Exactly.
came from.
Right.
So I spent probably 10 years in my head
Hmm.
never getting anything recorded
Mm.
until I came to the point and I said, you know what? it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay that I'm not a professional.
Right.
I am who I am. I need
Exactly.
to go step into a studio and start asking questions. And
Yeah.
as soon as you do that, as soon as you go ask a mentor
So,
or ask someone who is positive minded and it wants to help you,
yeah.
you can get out of your way and you can
Exactly.
start seeing the data and making a path
Exactly.
to a passion or a new job or
Mm.
whatever it might be. And I'm not trying to sit here pretending like everything is easy. It's not. But
Right.
these are methods to help you make it a little bit easier.
Right. Alaka, who's your inspiration? What inspires you?
What inspires me? So many things.
Okay, just give
Um,
me,
you know,
or who inspires you?
who inspires me? I will say that I I I'm inspired, or I'll just focus a little bit on, the summit method in the book I was doing. I read this book called Badass Habits.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
in that book, the author Jen Sincero, she talks so much about breaking down barriers. And
Yeah.
even though the book is about habits, I wasn't working on a habit. I wasn't trying to change some
Mm.
thing I either wanted to do or not to do in my life.
Okay.
But the methodologies in what she was trying to teach truly inspired me to get out of my own way, to get out of my space and say, how do I move forward?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just like following other fellow authors who have spent the time and energy to write things down and share their message. I definitely, encourage all of your listeners to look if they haven't.
Right.
Obviously, they should read your book,
Yeah.
um, because you have written down those ideas and are an inspiration for
Sure.
that. So
Yeah.
that's where I follow is
Okay.
all
Okay.
kinds of different people, not just one person, right? I there's
Okay.
too many to list. I just love taking the time to hear someone else's thought through the words that they choose to write on
Right.
paper.
Yeah. 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 I like that too. Like I like documentaries and things of that nature and those types of books. Well, Alakai, this conversation has been wonderful. I could talk to you another 15 minutes, ask you more questions, but we just don't have that time. But I just want to thank you for your wisdom, your methodology, your courage, also you saying that you can't do anything by yourself. Get a mentor, get a coach, whatever it is that you need to help you along, because no one stands alone. We're all created to connect, with somebody, and hopefully like-minded, as long as it's, I say it, ethical, moral, and legal. That's what I always say. But where can my listeners find you?
Okay. So if you're on social media,
Hmm.
you can go. I am on TikTok and Instagram,
Hmm.
trying to grow that following, something more recently. And you can go follow me, please do, on
Okay.
The Summit Method. So just search
Okay.
The Summit Method.
Hmm.
And if that's not your forte, go to my website. I have www.conqueryoursummit.com.
Mm.
You can learn about myself or grab the book from there, other podcasts. I'll be linking this one on there.
Hmm.
Um, Also, if you want to contact me for some reason, the information is there.
Okay. Well, thank you again. It was my pleasure. And listeners, if you believe or find this podcast to be of value, which I know many of you do, please share it with someone. Also, it's on going to be on all podcast platforms. It's going to be on my social media platforms as well. And also, every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I go live. And Alakai, this method, well, this podcast will go live, I think, around the second week in May. So I just want everybody to listen to this again. And if you miss something, or this brain mapping, this mind mapping that I called it, replay it, rewind it, and keep listening to it, because there's a lot of nuggets in there, and you could learn so much from there. So what I'll say is, I never say bye. I say bye for now. And thank you again, Alakai. And God
Thank
bless my
you.
listeners, and God bless you too. Okay?